Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of the Red Devils Corner Kick podcast, a fan podcast dedicated to Manchester United Football Club. As always, like, subscribe, follow, whether you're listening to on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or on YouTube. And don't forget to hit follow, like, comment, follow me on social media, whether it's TikTok, X, or Instagram. It is a late Tuesday. I do apologize for me not getting the episode out sooner. The cough is still there. The cough was affecting me a little bit tonight when preparing to get the recording done. So in the middle of some recordings, you would hear me coughing up one of my lungs. But right now it's a little bit more controlled, so I'm going to try and get out the episode as best as I can. Listen, today, like, part of it also is not just because of the cough. Part of it is I didn't know how to set the tone or set the mood. Obviously, yesterday, the way I was, especially doing the preview and everything with all that's been happening with the sacking of Amram, everything about Wilcox, all that stuff, the ownership, it definitely, it wasn't the best mood, especially when I was doing that preview, because again, I said we were going to struggle. I wasn't in that. I was still a little angry, and I still am angry with everything that's been going on. I know in sports you kind of have to have that short goldfish memory and learn from it and move on. But watching today's game, yes, they struggled. I said they were going to struggle against Burnley, and we saw that. Great. I'm happy we had 30 shots. I'm happy we had a bunch on target. Cool. We still drew against Burnley 2-2. Offensively, we couldn't score. Yes, we had shots on net, but some of them were directly at the keeper. Some of them were defended very well by Burnley. Everything that was going on today, Amram emphasized on why he needed some new players, and the midfield was wide open. But there was a lot of issues going on. I also don't want to make this episode or say something like, again, I am going to express some frustrations. It is going to tie to Wilcox, Berrada, the board, Sir Jim, the Glazers. There will be a mention of it. I don't want to take away some of the positives from that game that we saw. Seeing Sesko score those 2 goals, great. Having Bruno come back was great. Listen, Bruno is a champ. We know who he is. We know he wanted to come back earlier, but they were protecting him from the injury, which is what I respect, because again, it would suck to lose him longer than what is expected. Because again, we have a match on Sunday. We have Arsenal, City coming up after that. So having Bruno back meant a lot. So right now, having him there. So there was a lot of positives there. Again, the shots, great, but we couldn't secure them. We couldn't get it in the net. Again, Sesko, Dorgu, Bruno, I thought were fantastic. Player ratings will come out soon. But today, what part of me frustrated me and the one thing too, I laughed when I saw that image of Wilcox and Berrada basically looking like shit. And that made me frustrated because it's them. I don't want to spin it or whatever, as much as they said they were planning it towards Leeds, which means what Amram said on that Friday pissed them off, and then what he said Sunday pissed them off even more. So you can spin it that they had the plan before Leeds, but I doubt it. They were just not happy with him speaking the truth. And I mentioned that in the episode prior. Do apologize with the cough. But we see it here, and why Amram was so animate about getting those players in, getting that midfield, because our midfield today was getting overrun. It was. And nothing against Darren Fletcher. I understand, short window, whatever. But these players struggled. They let Burnley in. And like I said, you can't let them in. You Like, again, the deflection, that sucks, and it's a tough break. We're still conceding goals. There's still a tough break. We have, again, an FA Cup this weekend match as well, but I'll get to that when I do that episode. But the struggles were still there on why we needed it. I don't know why they thought Kobe, Bruno. Again, Amram was always vocal about everything that's going on, and he needed players to help. He did. I understand building for the future, but we needed players now, especially if they wanted European football. That's what the measurement was. But seeing them today at that game, the way they're looking, it does frustrate me. They're the ones that were dictating everything. They're the ones telling Amram, hey, you need to do this, this, and this. You're the ones that were getting so involved because you thought you had a plan. Look what your plan is. And again, nothing against Darren Fletcher. He is the one who is unfortunately in the middle of it now as the interim until we have a replacement. Guess what? If these players don't start doing stuff now, when like whoever the manager is, whether it's Carrick or Ollie or whatever, it's still going to be an issue. We couldn't close out the game today. I don't care about the 10 shots on target. We only scored 2 out of those 10 shots. Burnley had 1 shot, 2 goals. Yes, we know. And that goal, that 1 shot that they had, the goal was nice. It was a good goal. But they couldn't do anything in the middle. Burnley did well clearing things out. They were just getting rid of it. But United, again, when taking the lead, not being able to close out games. This isn't new. Amram knew about this and wanted to, again, still set the tone, get everything going. But they knew. They knew what was going on. But again, it's there. You're looking at that game before and after. They have to look at themselves. And again, this is the one thing I don't want to be setting the tone because again, there was issues on the field. Again, we saw some academy players. We saw Shea Lacey came on, great. We saw him hit the crossbar, cool. He's still developing. Kobe Mainu came on today. Yes, everyone, I saw those posts about Mainu coming back right away from the injury, so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into it. I've made my opinions about Kobe Mainu. Today, he was not the greatest. I was not wowed by Kobe Mainu today. Bruno, as much as he was back, yes, it was good to see him there and in the position that we all think he should be in, but I was still okay with him in that pivot role, but again, seeing him there. Shaw, Delo weren't the best. Casemiro, Ugarte weren't the best. The ones that really highlighted it today, Sesko, Dorgu, Bruno, again, those 3. You can talk about Shea Lacey. Aiden Heaven was okay today. Yes, the deflection is tough. Martinez is always average, or he's always going to be there. Played well, but not great. We still drew to Burnley. Again, this is the same Burnley that we played at the beginning of the year, where we needed a penalty to win, which would happen. And guess what? In that game, they had the own goal, so on and so forth. But United just, they struggled. And that's another thing that pissed me off too, is because yesterday, as much as I am sorry for sounding a little bit negative, but it was, I knew there was going to be the struggle. I knew as much as we went up 2-1, I was like, great, Sesko 2 goals in a row, great. We were down 1-0 going into it. But even still, defensive positions and everything that led to it and all that stuff, yes, Aiden Heaven tried to get the deflection and try and hopefully to deflect out of bounds. But unfortunately, it didn't win in the back of the net. But again, Delo, Casemiro, not getting the correct man to basically do it. Again, that's defensive miss. They're struggling. But overall, again, this game should have been won. But again, unfortunately, mental lapses in this team, still missing pieces, still missing midfielders, so on and so forth. We're gone. And we understand how important Bruno is and why Amram kept Bruno is because, again, Bruno is impactful. United have not found a player to replace him. They were looking at Kobe to eventually develop, but again, he has to take time. But again, everything was not the best today. again, they struggled. They did not look well. I don't like, again, I'm not the only time, like, again, stats can be stats, whatever, but we did not score. Burnley did their job. They kept it out of the net. They did a lot of defense, not just the keeper, but their defenders as well kept it out, especially when you look at some of those shots. Some of them that were going in were just cleared out defensively. Unfortunately, our defense can't do that. When we just felt like they struggled today. They did. They allowed it to go through. They allowed players to dance through some of our defenders and our midfielders today. That was there. So, but again, when we look at this and everything, I like, again, I don't want to take away for some positives, Sesko and everything, but again, Wilcox, this board, Sir Jim, the Glazers, this is all on you. This is your Frankenstein's monster right here. This is what you've created. This is what you get for not letting a manager try to properly rebuild. This is what you get when you do part ownership and $1 billion in debt. This is what you get when you basically have someone who basically came out and said that they undermined the manager, like they undermined Ruben Amorim, telling him to play this way, and this way. You have an owner who said we can't judge him until after 3 years, and you sack him 4 months later. You got called out on how shit you were. That's what it was. The manager wasn't set on results because your owner said we're going to give him 3 years. We cannot judge him. I have come out and said I knew what was happening. I knew how long it was going to take. I knew we were going to be I wouldn't say garbage. That's horrible to say, but I knew we weren't going to be good. I knew there was going to be struggles. I knew that we're going to be in a battle just to get into the top half because I mentioned it in my preview about some of the teams that we'll have to face. And right now we're sitting in 7th. Newcastle, who we just beat, just jumped us, and Brentford just jumped us. We're sitting in 7th. We were sitting in 6th before. But this is a result of the Glazers, Ineos, and this board. You had the manager who was right. He was, I believe Amorim was the right person to build and go forward. But unfortunately, the egos of the two gentlemen that we saw that were pointed out a couple times on the camera this evening were shown. They look like shit. Like we're look what we've caused. This is what you've done. I would love for them to take back Amorim and be like, we're sorry. We screwed up. But they're not going to do that. We know that would never happen. We know that Amorim doesn't want to come back. And you know what? I saw the reports of him, I saw him smiling with the paparazzi and whatever, and the talks about him and his staff leaving Carrington, laughing, whatever, because they know how it is at this club. They have. There was improvements. And I don't want to be negative about this. There were improvements. The reason why I'm not saying negative about the improvements, I'm just saying I don't want my tone to be this episode of being negative, but today was a result of that. And you threw the manager under the bus because you were cowards. That's what it was. This result here, with the results have been happening of them trying to build. They needed to build properly. You knew, we needed a proper, I can keep repeating myself, but we knew what this club needed. We knew what players they needed. But unfortunately, the ownership wasn't willing to do it. They were willing to say there was a project, but they weren't to do anything for the project. To them, their project was the balance sheet, and that's all they cared about. They just want to throw something on there, and boom. Like I've said before, United is the biggest commercial club in the world. We are not the biggest club. We're not the biggest club in England, and I'll say that. And I have said that. And I mentioned last night's episode on who the bigger clubs were. But today, seeing everything here was a result of that ownership, the board, not listening to your manager, not listening to him. First of all, you hire him on what he wants. By the way, our fan base was happy when we signed him. They were happy that he was sticking to his principle about his formation. But a lot of those fan channels, a lot of this fan base abandoned that quickly because we wanted someone with a system and someone to stick to their guns and go against it. But here we are now, 14 months later, with a board that tried to dictate everything, tried to tell him what to do. And you have Jason Wilcox in a press conference that's been released multiple times talking about the type of person he is and why he interferes. Again, I didn't want to make this, and I do apologize for the tone, but this is how I'm feeling. And some may not like the title of it, but again, this is where we are. I'm going to get the player ratings now. Okay. Aiden Heaven, 6. Martinez, 6. Shaw, DeLow, both 5s. They just, yeah. Cunha, 5.7. Bruno, 6.5. Ugarte, 5.5. Casemiro, 5.5. The midfield, those 4, they were getting danced through like they were nothing. Sesko, 7.8 with 2 goals. Again, I was happy with both. Bruno with the assist. Dorgu, 7.1. Him with the assist. He has been playing well. He's been playing extremely well the last couple of days. He has, I would say, probably been the most consistent. Yeah, I would say he's been the most consistent the last few games. Semi Lamens, 6. Both goals, yeah. The deflection, just a couple inches more to the right. He's probably saving that second one. Lenioro, 6. Xerxes, 5.5. Lacey, 6. He had a nice kick. Menu, I'll say 5.5. And Mason Mount, 5.5. But yeah, again, I can go on more about the board and everything. But yeah, today's game was a struggle. Not everyone played well. Again, my ratings are there. Like there was a chance they could have blown it and lost to Burnley today. That's, yeah. And we have an FA Cup game on Sunday. They have to show up to that. I don't care about what they did to Brighton. We beat Burnley 3-2. We beat Wolves 4-1, and we just drew both of them. And now we're playing Brighton. So, and don't get me wrong, like, and if I mentioned it, the bench and everything is there. We've had our struggles, and I've said that there, but nobody wanted to listen to that. We had depth, and that goes back to the board, Ineos, Wilcox. That goes back to them. Those draws. I don't care if you say we're Manchester United, we should be beating these teams. The offense and everything, the bench that we had were there. We had issues with depth. We had issues with injury. Some, yes, was on Ruben, but these last few draws, Wolves, Leeds, today, definitely, again, we had better of a bench today because some players came back. But Mount and Bruno, we knew were coming back today. Bruno, we didn't know. Maguire was on the bench too. But Leeds, Wolves, the depth was there. We didn't have the depth for those games. And you're saying it was on the manager? Even Newcastle, as much as we won 1-0, if Newcastle hits their shots, they're winning that game. The depth wasn't there either. We lost players. We didn't have anything to replace to help Amram to win games, if given the opportunity. No offensive weapons, no proper midfield. The struggle was there. So, yeah, but yeah. Yeah, I'll be, so yeah, again, I'll leave that there for the episode. Like I said, I can go off for a little bit longer. I'll be back tomorrow night. Actually, I'm going to push it to Friday. I'll be back Friday. I need to give my vocal cords a little bit of a rest. Just because I do use my voice every day, not just for the podcast, but for my job as well. So obviously trying to not cough as much when I'm recording. So if anything, if it does get better, maybe I'll be back tomorrow, but I'm going to aim for Saturday or for Friday. Catch up on the women's squad because they're back. We have a game on Saturday for them. we have the FA Cup match against Brighton as well, so we'll be just discussing that too. So yeah, but yeah, yeah, I'll talk to you guys on Friday. Enjoy the rest of your night. Enjoy your Thursday as well. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, follow YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and as well as Instagram, TikTok, and X as well. I'll talk to you guys on Friday. This is the Red Devils Corner Kick Podcast. Glory, glory, Man United.